A mass purge, ladies and gentlemen, right now being reported at Donald Trump's Security Council. This is really interesting. You know, Marco Rubio is the new head of the council. This is after we saw Mike Waltz leave to go become the ambassador at the UN. And we've seen a number of changes. I mean, don't forget what happened over at the NSA. Don't forget how it was rumored even when Mike Waltz was leaving that there would be additional people. Don't forget, Signalgate was the big deal. Signalgate, and people were wondering, did Mike Waltz have staff members that chose to add a reporter from the Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, onto that Signalgate chat message, or was that just pure, utter stupidity on everyone's part? Either way, Mike Waltz now over at the UN as ambassador, and Marco Rubio moved in, and Marco Rubio decided to fire a few more people. This is on the heels, right, of Donald Trump doing that. Donald Trump doing this not too long ago. Don't forget, you know, this was sort of brewing, right, as we saw the NSA guy go down, as we saw people that are really not aligned with the Trump administration and its view on things. They're suffering the consequences right now. Look at this. The headline coming out of CNN first, the Trump administration putting more than 100 officials at the National Security Council at the White House on administrative leave as part of a restructuring under interim National Security Advisor and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So this is pretty amazing. I mean, they're just going in and they are totally cleaning house. Really kind of interesting, refreshing to see, wouldn't you say? I mean, I don't think that he felt for 2 seconds like the intel team was ever on his side, right? And I think we know that the intel team wasn't necessarily on his side. I can report to you a dear friend of mine who used to work within the CIA and is very, very MAGA and close to the Trump administration, was called in last time around just to have a meeting to sort of get a lay of the land, because Donald Trump wanted to say, like, is there anyone I can trust here? Who can I trust? Who can I not trust? Because don't forget, that deep state is so embedded within the administration, and they have their own views of how things should be going down. Donald Trump doesn't necessarily agree with those views. So if you try and turn something on its head, you've got to have the personnel to be doing what you want done. Right? Don't forget that. You know, you saw Timothy Howe, don't forget, along with his deputy, Wendy Noble, that were let go about maybe about 6 weeks ago or so. And a lot of people cited Laura Loomer as being a reason for that. We know Laura, she's been on the show here. Again, head of National Security Agency and Cyber Command. He was let go. That was shortly after the Signalgate thing, because, I mean, hey, if you're running the Cyber Command and you get all kinds of problems happening in Cyberland, including with leaks within your own White House, maybe that would be a reason to let him go. But if you look at what Laura Loomer has said, it was really about his loyalties. In other words, this is a guy who had gotten appointed by General Milley. This is a guy who, even though he was sort of a career military person, she viewed, and she communicated this view, by the way, with Donald Trump as a problem. Going back to what she said back at that time, she really was making the point that you need strong vetting. You need to know that the people that are there in the White House have the president's back. She said this both on a tweet and then on another podcast. Let me go to it.
I harped on the most during the campaign season was, the importance of vetting. We need to vet people so that we don't have the same nightmare that we saw happen in the first administration, where people who are disloyal to President Trump curry favor once the election's over, after, talking to him the entire election season, and then they just get to go, oh, you know what, I'm gonna sneak in and I'm gonna reap all the benefits and the glory and the praise of getting a White House job.
Sure.
I thought that we were keeping a binder full of receipts. I don't know if some of the people on the campaign meant it when they said they were keeping the receipts, but I meant it.
Yeah.
I literally have a binder of receipts, and I know who's loyal and I know who is disloyal.
So obviously, if you're running the country, you need people that are loyal to you and loyal to your agenda. And that was a big part of the problem, right? Last go around, think about Comey. We're still feeling the effects of Comey. Comey's still going on television saying somehow that he's justified in his 86-47 thing because he didn't even know what it meant. I mean, Comey is a great example of that. And the Russia stuff that followed which, by the way, we're going to be learning more information on because they're declassifying all of those documents, and that should be happening within the next week or two. So get ready for that stuff. In other words, you got to have people that are on your side, and I've said this before. Look, I've been a business reporter my entire career. A new CEO comes in to a company. If that CEO does not have his or her team in place doing what his or her desires are for the company, then guess what? You got to fire them all. Because you need everybody on the same page. And so that's what's going on here. And we're seeing the effects. I mean, again, back to Laura, she was making the point that this was a General Milley pick and what the heck were we doing with people running the NSA, as well as her points about who was at the NSC. And Donald Trump defended her at the time.
So Laura Loomer is a very good patriot. She is a very
I know this is hard to hear, but he's saying positive stuff about Laura.
Strong person. And I saw her yesterday for a little while. She makes recommendations of things and people. And sometimes I listen to those recommendations like I do with everybody. I listen to everybody and then I make a decision. But I saw her yesterday. She was at the ceremony. And she'll always have something to say, usually very constructive.
What did she recommend?
She recommended certain people for jobs.
Adding to the administration, not
Adding.
Who did she not firing?
Well, she'll recommend that too. But yesterday she recommended some people for jobs.
Did she have anything to do with the NSC aides who were ousted?
No, not at all.
Did you know how many, sir? Do you know how many from the NSC?
Not many.
Was it?
Okay, so that's interesting. He's actually contradicting what some of the reports were. He's saying, no, she didn't have anything to do with all the NSC people that were let go. But I'm just saying, I think her interest is in making sure that people that are there on the team are actually on the team, which is, not that extraordinary an ask. Again, that's what he should expect. Obama had his team people there. I mean, Biden had his team people there. Clearly, heck, those people were covering up for the fact that he was seriously, seriously aging and ailing. And yet, Laura making a couple of recommendations about the NSC a month ago sent Peppermint Patty over at MSNBC into a near conniption fit.
Call it a close personal friendship with Trump over the years, cozying up to him at Mar-a-Lago events and even traveling with Trump on the campaign trail last year. You can see right there. Even accompanying him to a 9/11 anniversary observance in Lower Manhattan. I mean, that was quite a choice by Trump. It was so outrageous that actually fellow Republicans finally pushed Trump to distance himself from Loomer and boot her off his plane. Just take a minute to sit with this. The president and a number of his key cabinet members and his chief of staff had to listen to rantings of a 9/11 conspiracy theorist in the Oval Office. Imagine being Howard Lutnick listening to that. Remember, his financial firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, lost 658 people in the World Trade Center on 9/11. Including his own brother. So what was Loomer really there for? I mean, according to the New York Times, she walked into the White House with a sheaf of papers attacking the character and loyalty of numerous NSC officials. Now, to be clear, these weren't exactly rogue liberals she was attacking, not people just secretly Democrats in the rough there. I mean, a lot of these people had actually worked for the Trump administration during the first term. But Loomer said they were disloyal to Trump because they were, quote, neocons. Now, sources tell NBC News that Waltz stood up for his employees in the meeting. But remember, he's on pretty thin ice right now in the White House. Mainly, it seems, over the fact that he had Jeffrey Goldberg's contact in his phone, less than over the group chat he initiated that included attack plans and emojis. Who knows? But that aside, in the end, it seems Waltz's National Security Council got Loomered. Now, that is her term, not my term. But after that meeting, as the world economy was melting down from Trump's tariff announcement, the president fired at least 6 officials from the National Security Council, according to the Times.
Okay, well, guess what? There's no 100 more. So she's flipping out over 6. I don't know what Peppermint Patty's going to do now that there's about 100. Look, she's just awful, by the way. Impossible to watch. She really should have stayed doing the PR thing for Biden. She was pretty good at that, I got to say. I mean, way better than KJP, but this whole anchor thing she doesn't really get. There's no enthusiasm. There's no excitement. There is no pizzazz other than the red hair, right? Okay, so here's the deal. She, the woman you just saw, along with everybody everybody else in that administration, including all those deep state people, what did they do? They were covering for somebody. Covering for this guy. This is the most unbelievable soundbite. I got to play this for you because you need to understand. It's my favorite one. When we talk about how bad Joe Biden was, look at how he's just dazing off and just clearly doesn't know what day it is as these reporters are asking him questions. This was in 2024. He's still running for president. Don't forget, all of these people that are now being purged from the NSC and from other parts of the deep state, they covered for this. Think about it, all right?
I have a lot of questions. I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
Did you hear that? He said, I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
Super Tuesday voters.
And so, of course, they ask questions.
Super Tuesday said, do you have a message for voters? Thanks, come on.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
And they're saying, hey, everybody leave. Thank you. And if you're listening to this, I'm kind of narrating it a little bit. Go over to Spotify if you get a chance and give me 5 stars and subscribe to it there. But you see him, he doesn't know what to do. He's just in a really, 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 really bad state. And yet these people were covering for him. So they were enablers who, by the way, are going to be facing an investigation, including one Jill Biden and a few others. Maybe Peppermint Patty gets included in that too. It's kind of ironic, right? That you have Jake Tapper, who also was an enabler and also covered up, right, for one Joe Biden. He wrote the book along with Alex Thompson over at Axios, and they're exposing it all now. And it's kind of good, actually. I'm just going to say it's better that you have somebody that's a Democrat and a total lib write this. I mean, it's funny because it's sort of disgusting too. Jake is just trying to make a buck off it. But it's important because all of this is coming out. And I think it's actually going to lead to a lot of things getting reversed. For example, the auto pen, right, that was in existence for that whole time. How do you possibly honor all of those pardons that were put in place by the auto pen? I mean, the pardons didn't even make sense because the people hadn't even been charged with something. So all of that's going to come up. And we did that on the show. I encourage you to go look at Friday's show because we did a whole bunch on that. That is up for grabs, ladies and gentlemen. But this mass purge, this shows you how serious he is about changing things at the White House. And, you know, he hasn't been getting all the intelligence briefings. It's something that's driving one Susan Rice, an Obama holdover, right? Kind of crazy. She's like, how can he not be getting these intel briefings? And I think he's not getting all the intel briefings because he's sitting there going, do I want it from these people? No, I actually want to go and talk to a lot of people. Donald Trump talks to a lot of people. He'll talk to anyone, all right? So he'll call up reporters. He'll get information sort of his own way. He doesn't want it spoon-fed to him and sort of micromanaged by an intel team that has their own agenda. Here's Rice.
It's been recently reported, David, that the President of the United States, who's been in office well over 100 days now, has only received the presidential daily briefing, the most important, highly classified daily intelligence briefing, some 12 times, some 12 days of his 100 plus days in office. What is he doing if he's not reading the PDB? And I hate to say this, you could say it about the airplane, you could say it about Signalgate, you could say it about so many different things. But if any other president had refused or opted not to receive the presidential daily briefing from the intelligence community on a regular basis, it would be a huge, huge scandal with massive investigations in Congress and huge speculation that the president is not playing with a full deck. That's a key part of the job.
Excuse me, you want to know who was not playing with a full deck? Do I need to show you again? One President Biden. I remember when he was there with Georgia Maloney and he started to wander off at G7 because he saw a parachuter over there and he got kind of interested like a little kid and they had to bring him back in order to have the photo op. And he was so slowly putting on his glasses. It was so clear he wasn't playing with a full deck. Was he getting his briefing every morning? He was probably sleeping through it. I'm telling you, mark my words, this is going to become a very, very, very big deal because you cannot have some kind of random person behind the scenes running the operation when the American people elected Joe Biden. So for 4 years, you had AutoPen. James Comer's already on it. They're launching an investigation in Congress about this very issue. And I'm telling you, heads are going to roll.
No, they just talked to Joe Biden, and he was tip-top. He was in great physical condition. He was at the top of his game. Now they're coming back covering the track saying, yeah, it looks like he was in mental decline. Well, we all know he's in mental decline. What we need to know is who was calling the shots at the White House. And one thing that was also mentioned on your show thus far is that when you sign a document that has legal implications, it has to be signed personally. It can't be signed by an AutoPen. You use AutoPen for proclamations and mass letters and things like that. So I think that if we can understand more about the AutoPen and whether or not Joe Biden authorized it, I think this could lead to a lot of those executive orders being kicked out in court.
All right. And when do you expect these subpoenas to go out?
Well, the letters have already gone out to the staffers as well as Dr. O'Connor. So if we don't hear anything from them in a week, then I would expect to start seeing subpoenas.
And if they fight the subpoena, what do you do?
We'll go to court. Jesse, they're going to try to plead executive privilege, and they're lawyering up, and we're ready. That's why we're making sure every I's dotted and every T's crossed. The best thing that's happened in the last week with respect to this is all the new books that are coming out and all the former Biden staffers who are trying to cover their tracks. You're going to see people like Pete Buttigieg who think they have political futures come forward and say, you know, we didn't know anything. There were gatekeepers. They wouldn't let us speak with Joe Biden. And the more that comes out, the easier it's going to be to get to the truth.
You know, it's amazing. It's honestly amazing what they did. And then they're sitting there going, well, why isn't it that Donald Trump is not trusting the NSC? Why isn't he trusting his intel team? Well, maybe he's not trusting them because, one, last time, look what James Comey did. And then last 4 years, look what they did to cover up for Biden because they wanted Biden no matter what, right? They just didn't want Trump. So he's actually kind of doing the right thing.